So I just want to be sure I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
The first incident you described where there was any conflict between your dad and your stepmom, you said, I think you were around 9 or 10 years old?
Correct.
And there was some kind of text and you overheard a discussion?
Yes.
Okay. And you would have been 9 or 10 years old how long before your dad was killed?
Say again? Oh, when was this?
Yeah,
when would
when
this
did
have
this
been?
happen? Yeah.
This would have been probably around the year 2000.
So you would have been about 15 years old.
In the year 2000, I would have been 8 years old.
I'm sorry, you would have been 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah, around 2000, 2001, 8, 9, 10, something around that ballpark, yeah.
Okay. And that would have been 15 years that your dad and your stepmom had been married since then before he was killed, correct?
That's right, yep.
And the other instance you spoke about today for the first time was about something when you say you were about 12 years old?
Yeah, 12 or 13.
Okay. And that would have been about 13 years before your dad had been killed,
Yeah,
correct?
04, 05, something like that.
Okay. And those were the only times that you recall ever having heard any conflict or instance of argument about any kind of infidelity or other matter?
Those were not the only times to my memory, but those are 2 times that stick out in my memory that I can attest to, and I remember, I can close my eyes and imagine being there. But there were domestic disputes that happened occasionally. These 2 were about infidelity. I remember them specifically, but there were other occasions too, and yeah.
So one when you were 9 or 10,
Yeah.
and one when you were about 12.
There were at least these 2 incidents, yes.
And you said that your stepsister Jessica was 6 at the time?
Yeah,
And that she was talking about her mom flirting?
that's right.
Okay. And you said there were other instances of domestic conflict. What were they?
Yeah, just, when you're an only child, sort of growing up and being in a house and spend a lot of time alone in your room, you hear what everyone in the house is talking about. So there were many, many occasions when I overheard discussions like this, discussions about infidelity. Now, in instances in where they erupted into like a bigger argument, these 2 that we've discussed come to me immediately off the top of my head are, for some reason, core memories for me. I don't know why. But there were, there's always murmurings and discussions and stuff going on, remarks that are made about someone's boyfriend and, stuff like that. So.
And this was all when everybody was living in Canada, right?
That's correct.
And how old were you when they moved to Los Angeles?
I was, I believe, 18. I was 18 years old. 18 or 19.
18 or 19. And that was how many years before your dad was killed?
It was about 6 or 7 years.
6 or 7 years before your dad was killed.
Yes. Yeah.
And you, before your dad was killed, and it sounds like after, you had a fairly good relationship, it would be fair to say, with Monica?
I wouldn't say a good relationship. I would say it could have been a lot worse, that's for sure. We were friendly. We had a friendly relationship. But I wouldn't say we weren't close in any respects like that. Whenever there's a step parent, step kid relationship, there's always some, there's always a bit of animosity there. But could have been a lot worse, that's for sure.
Animosity by who, Mr. Sementilli?
From both parties, probably. I mean, I have more than one step parent even, so maybe, I reflect on this stuff a lot more. But there's always a little bit of animosity that kind of gets in the way in that relationship with you and that person. I'm sure there are instances of people who have great relationships with their step parents. But for me, it was as what you would expect with a step parent. Yeah.
What was your animosity against your stepmom?
Just that this person's not my mom. Just like it's the same situation on my mom's side as well. You know, just that something happened that caused my family to not be like everyone else's family. So.
And your mom and your mom and your dad had gotten a divorce, correct? And your dad then married Monica, correct?
Yes, correct.
But that is what you're describing as the animosity.
It's kind of hard to describe. It's hard because it's like it's like a wart that's always there, and it's the evil stepmother wart that's always there on your relationship, so to speak, right? There's always a mustache on the Mona Lisa with that relationship. It wasn't ever going to be like a true guardian and someone who needs guarding. It was just your run-of-the-mill stepmom, stepkid relationship, full of angst growing up and a little bit of resentment, but overall friendliness, and could have been a lot worse.
Okay. Mr. Sementilli, you described having come to Los Angeles in the fall of 2016 for a visit, correct?
That's correct.
And this was the fall before...
Sorry, to correct you. I visited in August.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's good.
That was my mistake. In August of 2016. And your dad was killed in January, right?
Of 2017, that's right.
Yes, okay. And you stayed in Los Angeles for 3 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you stay?
I stayed mostly in that upstairs office area.
Okay.
Where they had a bed there, yeah.
Okay, and that was with your girlfriend at the time?
Yes.
Okay. And you stayed there for just a vacation? There was some purpose, or just to visit with your family?
Just to see my family, yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Sementilli, you described some kind of incident where you said Monica had gone out and purchased a Fiat. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Was that incident you're describing when your dad and Monica went out to get the car?
No.
Your dad wasn't with her?
My dad was not there.
At all?
Monica came in from the garage and said that she bought a new Fiat, and then the rest of the story about the tantrum to get the better deal, manipulate the dealership people to get a lower cost.
So Monica came in from the garage, but your dad and Monica had gone to the dealership to purchase the Fiat, correct?
I can't attest to that. To my knowledge, Monica went to the dealership.
So you don't know whether your dad was there?
I don't think my dad was there. I was not told my dad was there. My dad presumably would have been at work when this was going on because it was during the day. She came in and told me the story, threw a tantrum in front of the dealership, and in fact, if my dad was there, I don't think the tantrum would have happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
But setting aside what you think or don't think about
Sure.
what somebody else would have done.
Yeah.
You don't know one way or the other whether your dad accompanied your stepmom to the dealership that day, correct? You don't know.
Overall.
I was never told that my dad went to that dealership with Monica.
Fair
It was
enough.
my understanding that Monica went to that dealership on her own, and she was the only one there.
Fair enough. Mr. Sementilli, you talked earlier about learning about your dad's death. And I just want to ask you a few questions about this. You described how you first got a call from Jess, correct?
Yep.
And that's your stepsister?
My half-sister,
I'm
Jessica.
sorry, your half-sister. And you didn't at first believe that it was real?
Yep.
And you actually tried to call your dad?
Yes.
Okay. And then at some point you called Jess back?
I either called Jessica back or Jessica called me back. It was one of the two. But yes, the phone conversation restarted itself. Yeah.
Okay. And you're not sure whether she called you back or you called her back, but you got on the phone with Jessica.
Yes.
And what did you talk about?
So the first time when she answered the phone, she said, "Oh my God, you have to help, someone killed Dad." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I thought I don't know, they were up to some hijinks, who knows. And then slowly kind of realized, okay, this is not like a call I've received before. I said, "Just slow down, let me talk to Dad." Of course, that's not going to happen. So then I believe that's when I hung up, tried to call my dad's, no answer. And then after that ended up being back on the phone again through Jessica's cell phone number. And then speaking with Jessica, yeah, not much was said. She said someone killed him, someone slit his throat, and then the phone was passed off to Deborah Obad.
Okay. Before it was passed off to Deborah Obad, Mr. Sementilli, when you were talking to Jessica, it's fair to say she was hysterical?
Jessica was freaking out, yeah.
Okay. And I think you described at the time she was overwhelmed.
That would seem appropriate, the appropriate word to use, yeah.
Okay, okay. And how long were you speaking to Jessica before she passed the phone off, as you said?
Not long, with a matter of seconds.
Okay. And then you got on the phone with who you've described as Deborah Obad, correct?
Yep.
And you knew Deb, correct?
Yes.
You were friendly with Deb?
I was friendly with Deb, yes.
And Deb was a friend of your mom and dad's? Or stepmom and dad's?
Deborah was a friend of my dad and Monica, yes.
Okay. Both of them?
Yes.
Okay. And you had seen her frequently at the house?
When I visited California, Deborah would appear, yeah, once every few days, yeah.
Okay. And you had spent any time with Deborah prior?
Yeah, for sure. In the backyard, chatting. She had recently adopted a son. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And when you got on with Deborah that night, it was Deborah. Well, let me ask you, what did Deborah tell you exactly?